Okay. So to those that know me, hello. I've been using eSIGHT since about 2011, basically 2012. I had one of the first units that came out, and then I became I have a career at Bell, and then I ended up working with eSIGHT for a while, and then I'm back at Bell now.
Cool. Sorry, Hugh, one second. I'm just getting a couple of audio issues. Everyone at eSIGHT, are we getting the same audio issues, or is it just my machine?
Just yours.
Okay.
Yeah, mine's good.
It's yours. Mine's okay.
My apologies, Hugh. It's just my machine, so hopefully you can continue going without any interruption. I apologize. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. No problem. So I have Stargardt. I've had Stargardt since I was about 24, 25. So I use eSIGHT specifically for my job. I'm a business analyst. So I'm on the computer all day. I do use it also around the house for doing woodworking. I like to do woodworking, electrical wiring, and that kind of stuff. So eSIGHT, to me, eSIGHT 3 is a very powerful tool, and I use it a lot. Specifically for golf, being low vision, I am part of the golfing community, which in Canada, there's the Blind Golf, Canadian Blind Golf Association. Each province has its own organization. So in Ontario, we have Ontario Visually Impaired Golfers, OVIG. And it's kind of cool that I didn't start blind golf until actually I was out in Saskatoon with eSIGHT, Tyler, and I believe Carolyn. And we were at a tech show at the CNIB in Saskatoon, and I met a gentleman called Jerry Nelson. Jerry Nelson is president of Blind Golf Canada. And that's how I started getting into playing blind golf with that organization. I played golf for about 30 years after my low vision, getting Stargardt. The nice thing about blind golf is that we have 3 categories. So you got a B. I'm a B3, meaning I have about my vision is about 2400. So the categories are 2200 to 2400, and then they go from there to people in B1 that are profoundly blind. So it's kind of interesting that the golfing community, the blind golfing community, has 3 categories. So we play with golfers that are profoundly blind, and people like myself that are low vision. It's recognized. There's an International Blind Golf Association. So blind golf is played, I believe, in 24 countries are part of the blind golf, International Blind Golf. So we have we have the Canadian Open, the British Open, the US Open. So those events are staged, and I'm actually hosting. I was supposed to host the Ontario Provincial Championships and the Canadian Championships this year in Guelph, but we've postponed it to next year due to COVID. So next year in August, we will be hosting those 2 events. Last year they were in BC, Cranbrook, which is a great facility, and we had about 43 players from Canada, the US, and around the world. So that's blind golf. I mean, from an international perspective, playing golf with low vision. Obviously, I need a coach, or the people I play with, that can obviously line me up, if you will, and hit the ball and tell me where it went, so we can go find it. Is there specific questions about does anybody here on the bridge play golf with their low vision?
Is a good question. Do we have any users here who either are looking to play golf or are playing golf? I mean, we'd love to hear from you. Hugh is a competitive golfer. If you guys currently have your mute set, you can click unmute or raise your hand, and then I can maybe, if you guys want to know, ask any sort of questions to Hugh. I mean, I have a couple of questions that I'd love to ask, but I'll open it up to the floor right now if anyone would like to ask anything.
Hey Hugh, it's Rosa. And we met briefly. I got the chance to work with you for a few weeks before you moved on. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, yeah.
How are you?
Good, you?
I don't play golf, but I've had a few clients. The reason I wanted to join today was because we had a few clients, and unfortunately due to COVID it didn't go through, but we had the opportunity to award a couple of units to some clients that were going to be going to the PGA tournament that was back in March, April, February.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
a couple months that got canceled. But that was the question, is that you were saying that a coach helps you line up. So do they kind of give you a perspective of which direction you need to go for the green, and then you're able to use the eSIGHT to maybe see the pole with the flag, or how does the coaching aspect work to help you?
Yeah, so with eSight in competitive golf, we can't use aids. So you can't use eSight in a competitive environment. So I have used eSight for golfing. It is obviously we still have some issues with the sun if it's really bright outside. So with a hat to try to, because the same issue still to see the screen. But eSight, it does allow me to zoom in on the green. If I'm standing out on a par 3, let's say, I can zoom in on the flag. So it allows that aspect. It really does benefit. You don't look through your eSight to see the golf ball because it's just too big, right? I mean, it's when your head does move, so you would get distracted. So what I do is I set my eSight like I do now, tilt it, look underneath. But when I'm looking before I hit the shot, I can look at where I want to go. And obviously I can't follow the ball in the air. So they'll have my coach with me too. And their job basically, you know, obviously with eSight, I can read, if I have a rangefinder, I can look at the scorecard, I can look at distances, I can figure that out, or the coach helps me with that. They also line me up. The cool thing about eSight too is that you can watch your playing partners play. Obviously my vision, if somebody's 10 to 20 feet or more away, I see their outline, but I don't see their, you know, details. So with eSight, I can watch another player swing, or, you know, a lot of times I'll be standing there and then either the coach will say, okay, you're good to go, or, you know, somebody will yell over, hey, Hugh, it's, you know, go ahead. So the coaches, especially in competitive golf, their job is to describe the hole. If I have a hard time trying to figure out where we're going, where we should try to end up. As one coach tells me, if I knew what kind of shot you were going to hit before you hit it, I'd line you up better. But that's just the flaw with my golf game. Yeah, their job is to direct that, and then their part of their job is to obviously follow the golf ball, and then, you know, we ride in a cart together with COVID. Lori's been riding, I've been walking just because of the social distancing aspect of it. We had our first OVIG event last weekend. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend, so I didn't hear how it went. Obviously, if you're profoundly blind, walking around the golf course isn't going to work. So I'm not sure. At the golf course I went to, as long as both players agreed to ride together, they were fine with that. Some golf courses, they still have the rules of one person to a cart. So yeah, so with eSight, yes, definitely. And to wear it to a golfing event that you can see the details is great. I think that still, you still have the issues about the sun. If it's very bright outside, contrast, you know, trying to make sure that you know how to adjust luminance and that to set it up specifically for the conditions you're sitting in or in. But yeah.
Thanks, Hugh. Thanks, Rosa, for the question. I have one from Matt. He's asking, does anyone have a better way to track balls or find them if you can't see them, or is that what the coach does? So, I mean, how do you track your balls? Like if you're, you know, practicing, and are you relying more on your coach, or can you rely on the device on that?
No, it's the coach. Definitely to try to hit a shot and try to catch the ball in the air with eSight. I haven't been able to do it successfully. Now, I have been able to hit it and then look down the line, and, you know, if you might see it land on the green if you're lucky enough to hit it on the green or where you're looking. But to follow it, no, that's pretty much the job of the coach. you know, it's amazing to me. Number one blind golfer in the world is an Israeli. He shoots about 100 at the golf courses. Canada, we have the world champion in the B3 category, and he's out of Calgary. He's about a 6 handicap, and he has about the same visual acuity that I have.
Wow.
I mean, the thing about golf, from a, you know, people ask me, how come you play golf, which is a completely visual sport? And I don't know if you're talking, you know, the gentleman that was curling. It's more about getting out. It's about being out with your friends, and even in competitive environments, meeting people from around the world. It's also people who have the same kind of eye problem, if you will. And we talk a lot about different situations, you know, somebody that you can be open about, you know, how you experience your vision loss. And obviously if you participate in alcohol, there's alcohol consumed in those sessions. But yeah, I think it's, I mean, getting out and playing golf. I mean, Jerry Nelson, he's a Canadian B1 champion. He has been a world champion. He lost his vision due to diabetes, and golf saved his life. If you asked him, if you sat down, if you looked Jerry Nelson up, he'd tell you it saved his life. He was, you know, having a hard time adapting to his vision loss until he found golf and started playing golf. And so yeah, I mean, the nice thing about, so my answer to people who ask me, why do you play golf with a visual impairment? It's about getting out. It's about the recreation, you know, and playing it and enjoying yourself. But it's mostly from just being with people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's also what David was telling me about. You know, he gets to hang out with his wife, and you know, again, same sort of regulation with curling is that you can't have particular aids. But one thing, when you're lining up a shot, especially if you're skip as a curler, you can have somebody on the other side with a broom, and then he's using his eSIGHT to actually line it up, and then from there he knows, you know, what the next step would be. We do have a couple of questions. So Ken, are you still here?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay, great. Do you have anything you'd like to share?
You know, Hugh, you are thinking about yourself on the golf course completely differently than I did, and I'll just, let me explain that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I stopped playing because I thought of myself as an imposition on the course. So either I was slowing down play, or I was imposing on the people who were in my foursome with me. Mm-hmm. And you've completely, I mean, you may have changed the way I think about this in just 10 minutes, because you've just decided I take a coach with me, and that removes that sense of imposing, perhaps. Maybe that's because I love to play. But I literally haven't played in 10 years because I don't want to slow it down.
Well, I would, I mean, I was a member at one golf course for 30 years. And when I joined that golf course, I had my vision problem, but we played with about 16 guys, Saturday and Sundays. So those guys knew when I was playing with them, you know, to watch the golf ball and stuff like that. My wife, I have about 4 coaches that I take to tournaments or come play with me. So, you know, I think that the positive aspect that you need to look at is if you are out there with a group, and I've met people with my wife when we've been on vacations, and, you know, maybe the starter would join us up with 3 other guys, and my wife's in the cart with me, and then she starts lining me up and they start asking questions, and it's pretty amazing their reaction to, you know, and all of a sudden, I have 3 friends watching my golf ball besides my wife, because for the most part, I've never had, touch wood, I've never had anybody give me a hard time about being on the golf course and maybe, you know, slowing it down a little bit. Now, sure, if I'm not playing a competitive round of golf and I've hit, you know, a bunch of shots and I'm not enjoying the hole, hey, I pick the ball up and go to the next hole. I'm not here to play with my you know, my score, that kind of thing. You know, if it's a competitive round.
You have to have a certain amount of acceptance of, I'm only going to look for so long, and then take a lot of balls.
Yeah. You know, in a competitive environment, with B1s and B2s, and we mix and match, it can be a 5-6 hour round.
Sure.
It is
sure.
And that's just for the first 9 holes.
Unfortunately,
one thing I've done is especially since the COVID, where they're one person per cart, at least if it's, you know, you can only have a family member in the cart with you. I take my kid out with me. I take my kids. I alternate my kids. I got 3 teenagers, and it's a chance to spend 4 or 5 hours with your kid, and it's a spotter. It's a coach for you. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's
I think they should.
My children.
They could probably instill the Swedish golf license. I don't know if you're familiar with what it's like to golf in Sweden, but to book a tee time there, you actually have to be registered and understand the etiquette of the game. Because there's I mean, if you go golfing anywhere here in the Greater Toronto area, there's a lot of people who don't get that etiquette, and they slow it down. So I don't think it's for people who are sighted. I mean, specific to people who are not, you know, VI. But yeah, I mean, pace of play is super important. But I don't know. I mean, Ken, you mentioned something about, or sorry, Hugh, you mentioned something about slowing down. Is that like a type of anxiety that you may have while you're playing, or is, I mean, I guess, or at least something that you had early on? And how did you resolve that?
Yeah, I mean, if I mean, visually, regular visual people take a long time to play too. I mean, I think that, you know, the rule is that if, you know, you keep the sight of the group in front of you, and you not holding the group up behind you, you keep playing. I don't really let it bother me. You know, I was going to say, in a competitive environment, you know, you can be out there for 6 hours or so, and we play stroke play. That's the international blind golf rule. We are invoking in Ontario Staberford scoring, so you don't, you know, you're not out there taking a 15 on a hole, let's say. So some of the ways to make it easier for you is, you know, double par and pick up and go ahead. You know, I think that if you're out for recreational golf and you get frustrated, you can have a really good round for yourself going, and then you have a bad hole. But then just, you know, in my opinion, I just pick it up and go to the next hole and write it off. I think we all watch PGA Tour players, and we get in our head that we want to count everything and we want to be competitive. But, you know, I think that the mindset is that I'm going to go out, I compete against myself only. And when I get a little frustrated, then what the heck, you know, pick the ball up, have a beer, and go to the next hole.
If you drink. Yes.
Or water, or whatever you like.
Yeah, of course, of course. So Roger, I have a question from Roger. I'm going to go ahead and ask to unmute, so you can go ahead and ask your question, or what would you like to share today, sir? Sorry, Roger, I believe you're on mute right now. I'm not sure if you know that. But yeah, I guess everyone's on mute just to make sure everyone's available. But here we go. Hi, Roger. Hi. How are you?
Sorry about that. This is my first time using this, so.
Oh, welcome.
Hi, it's nice to see everybody. Just a little bit. I have RP and have lost like 98% of my vision, so I have very little left. But someone was talking about how you know what direction to hit. And one of the things I do is I have a neon yellow cane that I take. And I don't think you could use this in competitive golf, but at least for casual golf, they point it in the direction I need to hit. And I line up, and that with a very dark polarized sunshades gives me a good aid in which way to go. And I use the neon yellow balls as well. So that's one way that helps me with the coach. They just point it in the direction, and then I do the rest.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's good feedback. I use a yellow golf ball as well. When I walk up to the green, if there's 4 white balls on the green, then I don't know where to go. But it's kind of funny because then you get into blind golf with the other blind golf players. Next thing you know, 4 players have yellow golf balls. And now I use the white one so I can differentiate. But
that's great. Cool. Thank you, Roger. Our very own Jeannette is with us. And Jeannette, how are you doing today?
I am good. How are you?
Doing well. We have Hugh today. Do you have any questions for Hugh?
Hugh, it's so lovely to meet you. I joined not long after you left, I believe. So, so Hugh, I wanted to know, have you ever tried using, I know the gentleman just before was talking about dark shades. Have you ever used baffles when you're playing golf?
I tried the baffles that eSIGHT had that we first came out with the glasses on the sides. Yeah, actually, the ones that we do have that are baffled on the side, like the sunglasses that are shaded on the side but clear in the front, they work well because it blocks out some of the sunscreen, sun in the sides. Yeah.
Perfect. So you do find that was quite effective.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, the thing is, it's all about the individual and how their eyes, rods, cones react to different lighting conditions, right? I mean, you know, Tyler can read his cell phone without eSIGHT where I can't. So again, each person has an individual, you know, where their eyes work, depending obviously on their eye condition, but definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Boom. I saw Rosa hold up a set of the sun baffles that come with the eSIGHT, or not come with, but are compatible with the eSIGHT, which is great. So thanks for the question, Jeannette. I have a question from our chat line over here about, you know, if you're just losing your vision, you know, what type of practicing drills do you take on, Hugh, when it comes to golfing? Do you go to the range, and how does that work?
Yeah, I go to the range when I can talk my wife into it, or some of my friends to go out. And I mean, for me to go hit golf balls, you know, I could be snap hooking the ball and thinking I'm hitting it great. So, you know, the feedback, I can tell sometimes off the way I hit the ball whether I've hit it well or I duck hooked it or whatever. But you know, it's funny. I had the pleasure with eSIGHT a few years ago. We're in Fort Worth, and we met the Stocktons. So Dave Stockton Sr. and Dave Stockton Jr. And at that time we were at the Nike Club, which is, we put on the Stocktons gave a nice golfing tips. They had people come in short game and putting, and they paid money to come in so they could raise funds for 2 young gentlemen to get their eSIGHT. And it was interesting. Blind golfers low vision golfers have a problem of lifting their heads. And I know if I lift my head for 1 millisecond, I sometimes can see the ball start, and it's very hard to stop that. And Dave Stockton Sr., you know, we were talking about golf, and you know, I was hitting shots, and I explained where I look over the ball. I look about a foot to a foot and a half above the ball, so I can see it with my peripheral vision. And he was hitting shots, and he was, you know, doing the same thing. And it took him a few times to get the feel of it. But he said that from a golfing perspective, the way he, you know, instead of trying to get the visual feedback, is to get the feedback from when the club hits the ball, right? So did you hit it in the center? Did you hit it on the toe? And let your hands almost become your eyes in how you hit the golf ball. And when I'm practicing, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not worried about where the ball goes or the score or anything. When you're on the range, it's about hitting the ball and feeling where the club hit the ball. So, you know, and in that way, trying to mitigate the amount of lift your head, try to see it for a second. Or a lot of people will hit the ball and look at their coach to get the reaction from the coach right away and see, you know, are they like, oh my God, we're in trouble now? Or are they like, oh, that's a good one. So yeah, so I mean, that's the thing. If I can get somebody to come to the range with me, then I like to go to the range and hit balls.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Hugh. Joseph. I have Joseph here who has his hand up. How you doing, Joseph?
I'm doing great. Can everybody hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, great. I'm a sight impaired golfer as well. And, Hugh, my vision is substantially less than yours, probably comes in, give or take, about 22,000. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I depend more. I mean, I can see the white ball on the ground, but, the other type of things just, aren't working for me. What Roger mentioned about the yellow stick, whether like a neon yellow cane or something like that, that we do as well. And that works incredibly well. And so I appreciate that. But, I think the best, most important thing I learned about golf is, number one, when we're golfing, we're not talking about working. So that's real good.
Yeah.
Because the two people I go golfing with, they're also people that I work with. And, and the most important thing is about the fun factor, and, while I'm not able to see my shots per se, I can hear them really well when they land in the water. Okay. And I mean, if you're having fun out there, I think that's really important. And I think one thing that I've learned too is same thing. If it's just not a good hole, I pick up the ball and I'll say, well, we start over every hole and give it a better shot the next time. But these are good tips that I'm hearing, and it's reinforcing some of the thoughts that I have. I got to be honest with you. I'm not familiar with eSIGHT. I'm going to have to go to the website after this call here, because I'm not familiar with these baffle glasses or some of these other devices here that you're referring to, Hugh.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. That's great, Joseph. And yeah, Hugh, I mean, you make a very good point about how seriously you take the game. I think that's something that, a lot of people are getting. I mean, and you're right. When you watch the PGA, you'll see a lot of people, calculate every single shot and everything. But I think if you just take it easy and you move forward, ultimately when you play something a lot, you get better at it. So I appreciate that sentiment. And I think a lot of people do here too.
There was a golfer that I was reading up on blind golfers and so forth. And one blind golfer, he said same thing. He wanted to count every one of his shots because he was really competitive. And he said the first time he went golfing, he shot a 352. Well, I mean, you can get competitive, but, do the best you can, have fun. And I'm sure you get, like anything else, you do it more often, you get better. And some days are good and some not so much,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thanks.
That is the name of the game. So is there anything else that you can add to that, Hugh, in terms of, different techniques? At the driving range was the original question. You're saying when you go to the driving range, you go with your coach or your wife. Are there any other techniques that you use to just really focus on that swing? Like you said, it's about getting that rote memory. Any other tactics?
One of the other things I try to do, I play the Ferbers out of Winnipeg. They have RP, and Darcy is a really good golfer. He's almost completely blind now, but so I was having trouble chipping. Work on your short game, and one of the things I was doing when I was chipping was close my eyes, because that's the way he chips. So he was alluding to me that half my problem is because I can see what I'm trying to do. And so him and his coach, Ron, and my coach, Lori, we sat in Winnipeg at a chipping green. And that's what Darcy started getting me to do, was close my eyes when I'm chipping. Obviously I have the benefit of, kind of lining up better, easier than he does. But then I'd close my eyes and hit the shot and get the feel of the club. And again, I think that, meeting people with other impairments. I had last year we played in the Ontario Provincial Disability Championships. So they had people from all over the world with all different classifications of handicap. And blind golf was one that they just, I think it was the first year they had blind golfers. So there was 4 of us that went and played, but they have everything from Down syndrome to people with prosthetics. And again, it's amazing to sit in a room full of people with all disabilities and they all talk the same, right? About having fun, getting out, meeting people, and all discussions around how do you do this, how do you do that, to help and improve yourself.
That's so cool. When the golf courses were open, because I know you're here in Ontario, when they opened, I believe it was last month. Did you rush out to get a tee time, or are you still waiting?
Yeah, no, I was out the first Saturday that they were open. My son-in-law went out with 4. I think we had a total of 7 between the 2 groups that went out, and we played. So yeah, we were out right away.
Where's your home golf course, if you don't mind me asking?
I live in Simcoe, so it's at the Greens at Renton, which is just outside of Simcoe.
Oh, cool. We have another question from Mark. Mark, how are you today?
Hi. This is the first time I've done this.
Welcome.
Joe and I play together. I'm wondering if you can tell me how you judge the contour of the green and how you decide how much a ball is going to break.
I walk it. Walking the golf course, I mean, with my coach too, they can tell me, okay, you know, the green slope right to left, or but I'll walk from, you know, if I'm on the green, I'll walk it from my ball to the hole and try to feel it through my feet. The profoundly blind, the B1s, you watch them play. That's what they do as well with their coach. They will walk it, even if they got a 30-yard chip. Sometimes they will walk it. So yeah, so walking that to get that feel, and then obviously your coach or people you're playing with can let you know. I don't have much problem if it's a big break, because you can feel it. It's all the little subtle breaks that can affect you from that perspective. And but yeah, walking it, getting feedback from other people, especially if you have somebody out there coaching you, can give you a good idea. That's kind of the way it works.
Thank you. One
Hugh,
other.
if I may comment, may I comment? Mark, because Mark does this when we're out golfing, and I think maybe what Ken alluded to is for myself, when Mark says to walk it, make sure I kind of get a good feel for it. You know, for me anyhow, I feel like I'm holding people up to a certain extent. Maybe there's a foursome behind us or whatever. So I'll just oftentimes I'll hit it because I don't want to have to walk 50 yards or whatever and then walk back and find my ball, etc. So I think part of it is that, you know, how busy or how rushed, you know, to be able to do this, you know, because I know when I have walked it, I said, I didn't realize it was, because Mark may say it's 30 yards and I'm thinking that's the shortest 30 yards I've ever walked, you know, or, you know, I didn't know that it was so much this way or that way. So I like you, what you're saying, and, you know, to be able to take your time and walk it if you really want to be able to make a better shot.
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. So we have a question here in the chat from Greg, who has a podcast called Eyes Free Sports. So if you guys want to subscribe to Greg's podcast, you can go to eyesfreesports.com. Thank you, Greg, for sharing that with us. He wants to know what your best score was, Hugh. What's your personal best score? I guess one, you know, recreational and the other competitive. Well, I guess more people are probably more excited about the competitive piece, but
recreational, I shot a 79, which was 8 over par.
Wow.
Competitively, I'm about a 19 handicap in blind golf community. I guess the best in that would be 83 in a competitive environment. I won Ontario Provincials 2 years ago, and I won the Western Open 2 years ago as well.
Amazing.
But again, I mean, those are competitive rounds, but for the most part, it's recreational now.
Oh, cool. We have another question here about visual acuity when it comes to the different levels that you mentioned earlier on, the B1 to B3. Is there a particular acuity range for each of those? I mean, or is it like skill level? Like how do you fall into those categories?
So yeah, so you have to be you have to have an eye test, and there's a form that's filled out and sent into the association, Blind Golf Canada. The acuity is, I think B3 is 2200 to 2400. B2 is 2,400 to maybe 2,800, something like that. It's also a percentage of vision. And then B1, B1 golfers wear blockout glasses when they play, because some B1s may have shadow, you know, light, dark. So in the B1 category, everybody wears blockout sunglasses when they play golf. And that's how, but again, you need to have an optometrist give you an eye test and fill out the form and sign it. And then that way they make sure that everybody is in the right category. There is a B4 right now. So basically if you have a CNIB card and you don't fit, you know, in the category, then you could get a B4. It's not recognized to be in a competitive environment, but it doesn't matter, because OVIG is more about having more members join blind golf. And that's one of the things that we're really trying to do is promote the sport and get more people participating, especially younger people, right? I mean, we're trying to get to the CNIBs in Canada and whatnot, and hopefully one of the things we were going to do this year at the Canadian Open was have CNIB instructor come out and hopefully put on some clinics that we could attract new players to come out and participate in.
How many members do you have right now with the organization?
I think there's about 35 off the top of my head in OVIG. And I think in Blind Golf Canada, there might be around 60.
Okay. So when those competitions occur, is that exclusive to just Canadians? Or, I mean, because, you know, you have like the PGA, you have the CPGA, and you have those organizations that are pretty much divided by the borders of the country. When you have events, any sort of like a competition, do you open it up to other organizations outside of Canada?
Yep. Yeah, the Canadians. So the one thing about the International Golf Association is they fund for the Canadian Championship and all national championships, they fund about $700 US towards the player playing. So they do a lot of fundraising to raise money for that. And then we have the provincials, let's say the Ontario provincials, we invite, you know, players can come from around the world to play if they want to. Now, the International Blind Golf don't sponsor them for that specifically. So the challenge is we, as an organizing committee, we try to raise as much funding as we can to the blind golfer. If we're playing in a competitive environment, pays about $250. So if you think the provincials next year and the Canadians, we're going to be in a hotel room for 7 days. We play a practice round and then 2 competitive rounds for each event. So there's 6 rounds of golf. For those 2 events, it's about $500, the $500 entry fee, which also covers the coach. So in order to make it, to put on a good event, we do a lot of fundraising. Cool. Yeah, that's kind of how, you know, the funding goes for those events. And we really do we're putting the provincials together with the Canadians next year. So we have the people coming from around the world to play the Canadians. They will come for the provincial. So we should have a good 43 to 45 players plus their coaches. So you're looking at, you know, around 90 people you're hosting. Yeah.
A big expense. When it comes to competitive versus recreational, I mean, is there anything that you do different? Because I assume, you know, you're probably trying to get in tune more with the competitive rules. When you're out there, you know, just you and your son-in-law, is there anything that you do differently, you know, within each one of those arenas?
Yeah, if I'm out with Jay, I'll make it a competitive round. We'll try to make it as competitive as we can, depending on when the events are coming up. But again, you know, it depends on if we're out with other players. We'll play a Stableford event, you know. That's what we're trying to do with the provincials now. So that means that you basically have your handicap, and we have Stableford is a 3-2-1 score. Actually, we do it for double bogeys a point, and then for a bogeys 2 points, pars 3, and a birdies 4. So if you take your handicap off the hole, so if I'm 18 handicap and I make a I'm going to hit my 9th shot on a hole, I can pick up and carry on, and I just scored no points for that hole. So as somebody said earlier, you go to the next hole and start fresh, which is a lot different than stroke play. So the International Blind Golf rules for the Canadian Championships and their sponsored events, it's stroke play.
I see. And you're actually trying to get Stableford scoring in that venue, right?
Yeah, we're trying to work with the International Blind Golf to recognize, again, we don't want to be out there for 6 hours, right? Nobody does, and nobody's trying to be. And like even with the golf courses, when we book the Canadians at Guelph Lakes, you know, they understand that, you know, we're basically taking the golf course over from noon for that afternoon. And you know, a Stableford can go much faster because, you know, once you hit that max, you just pick your ball up and, like I said, grab a beverage and go to the next hole.
Yeah. We have a couple of questions on how to volunteer for these events. When it comes to hosting these events, I imagine it's a big expense, but I imagine you also need to have folks to help out. How does the organization manage the volunteers, and how can one volunteer for such an event?
Well, if you can send me an email if you want. If you're thinking about next year, but if they go to the Blind Golf Canada webpage, or you go to OVIG, Ontario Visually Impaired Golfers, I'm on their OVIG's board of directors. And yeah, we need a lot of volunteers. So if you think about, we do box lunches each day. So we need volunteers to again, our job is to make the event as enjoyable as possible, and still have, you know, like box lunches. We still have meals. We still have transportation. We still have to get, you know, golfers to the golf cart. You know, we're trying to get drivers to be able to help out, people to do scoring, registration, all that goes along with running an event. So yeah, we've actually, I think in Guelph, well, we were going to this year, it was part of the 2 high schools were going to use it, that they could use that time to volunteer for the event towards the students' mandatory community service. So we'll have to see if we can get that again next year, depending on how the rules for COVID and all that work out. But yeah, if you're interested in volunteering, you can go to our
contact
website.
Hugh. Yeah. Great. Yeah. I mean, if anyone here does want that, feel free to reply to any of the emails that we sent out about this event, and make sure to channel those emails back to Hugh or to the organization. Joseph, I see you have something else you'd like to share?
I did. Just one quick question, and I'm kind of maybe being a little bit facetious, but not really. Does every swing count? Meaning, let's say if you just out and out miss the ball off the tee or wherever, does that count in competitive?
If it's on the tee, no. For visually impaired golfers or regular golfers, no. If it's on the tee and you knock the ball off the tee and you didn't intentionally try to hit it or anything like that, no. In competitive golf, yes. If you swing and miss and you had an intent to hit the ball, it would count. Yeah, I mean that's kind of the rule.
That's good to know off the tee. You know, so you know, obviously, I'm sure there's a number of times you could swing at the ball before you know, but. You know, that's good to know. Make sure, I hope my friend Mark is hearing this, because sometimes he'll want to try to make me count that.
Cool. Right. Thanks again, Joseph.
Thank you.
So Hugh, how does one find a coach? I mean, you mentioned that you can get assigned a coach at certain places, but if, let's just say somebody here needs a coach, what does one do?
That's a good question. If you are wanting to get into golf and you don't have anybody who plays golf, I would contact the pro at the golf course. And, you know, if they have a teaching pro, you know, tell them your visual impairment and you want to get into golf. If the golf course has members, you know, members like when we had the Canadian Open in Ontario and in Hamilton 3 years ago, I had a bunch of my friends from Victoria Park come down and coach. For this year, we had requests for people that were flying in from overseas that weren't bringing a coach, and we were asked to provide coaches. So again, most golfers, to be perfectly honest, anybody I run into and they find out that you're visually impaired and you're playing the game of golf, you know, unofficially become your coach if they're in your foursome. I've even had people behind us, you know, drive up and say, hey, you know, we just talked to the pro and you're visually impaired and, you know, we just wanted to watch you hit a golf shot. I'm like, oh, really? Go away. Like, oh, I can't see you. Okay, go over, stand over there. So yeah, most people, I think, to find a coach, if you don't have a friends that golf, I think contact the golf course if you're going to, and maybe, you know, see if they're willing to, maybe that pro will come out and help out to get you started. And then maybe one of his friends.
Cool. And if you have any publications or anything, I'm sure Crystal can get those from you. You know, how would I subscribe to learn more about the blind golfing community and all the things that we can do to volunteer? As Brandy mentioned earlier on with the chat, I mean, she's in Atlanta. So have you ever golfed out in the southeast of the United States, Hugh?
Southeast. No, I've been to San Antonio. We played in an event down there. Ohio. We played an event there. I've been to Green Valley, Arizona. We played the U.S. Open there. But yeah, I mean, there's the U.S. Blind Golf Association is out there. It's a great it's a great organization. They hold events in each state, I believe, has also, like in Canada, we have blind BC, Manitoba, Ontario, Winnipeg, all of them. Each province has their own blind golf organization. And what we do is we switch between, so the Western is, you know, anything, you know, Alberta or Manitoba West is called the Western, Ontario in the East. So we host the Canadian alternately each year. So last year, as I said, it was out in British Columbia. This year was going to be on Ontario, but we're going to make it next year. And then the year after that will be on the East Coast. And we keep going around that and having them in different cities with different people hosting it, and then bringing in their volunteers. But I can I'll send a link to the OVIG link, Blind Golf Canada link. I have a link to our event. I haven't updated. I got to go on the website and show that it's not 2020 anymore, but there is a specific event website for the Ontario Canadians in 2021 now.
Of course. I mean, that's COVID life, right? I mean, things have changed. I mean, have you noticed any changes on the golf course? I mean, I've noticed at my local golf course, you know, there are no more holes. They put out the pin bumpers. Yep. So when putting, I mean, you do get feedback, but it's a different experience altogether. I mean, I think I got a hole in one in every single shot, so that's always fun. Jeannette, I see you have your hand up. How are you doing?
Good. So this has been really interesting. So basically, I guess I know you've been given lots of advice along the way, but if you had one sentence, one main piece of advice that you could give somebody with an eSIGHT who wants to do golfing. I mean, you've said a lot of things today, but what would be your main, if you could wrap it up in one sentence for people who are wearing eSIGHT who want to be golfing? What would you say?
I would say know your device and how you can set it up best for you. Meaning, you know, if you wear eSIGHT and you're in the sun, how does it work good for you before you go to the golf course? Like, I already experiment with that. You know, I wear a hat, if you have the baffles, you know, because there'd be nothing more frustrating than trying to wear it at the golf course and not have it set up, you know, how you like to have your illumination. You know, do I want it set lower? Sorry?
Right. So really important to get to know your device before you go on the golf course is what you're saying. Yep. As opposed to experimenting with it once you're there.
Yeah. And I'm sure our coaches can cater to that particular, I guess, activity if people are open to that. Thanks, Jeannette. That's a great question. Of course, we are using eSights here, so that's it makes sense to at least ask that one. But yeah, if you do have an eSIGHT, feel free to contact the coach and ask your coach if golfing is right for you with the, with the properties of the device. Any other questions for today? I have a couple of other ones here on the chat here about, places that you've golfed before, like where's the most exotic place that you've golfed, Hugh? Like, have you been to Hawaii? Have you been to Charlotte, North Carolina? I mean, or any places on your wish list, I guess I can ask.
Let's see, I've been, we were just in Cuba in February before COVID, Dominican, Florida, Myrtle Beach area, San Diego, Los Angeles, out west. I mean, Cranbrook last year was beautiful.
Oh, wow.
It's in the lower BC mountains, close to the US border, but it's just a beautiful place to go. I like to go play Pebble Beach. I don't think I like the dollar value of Pebble Beach, but
No.
I think it'd be great to go play it.
Yeah, I went to California once to see Pebble Beach, and I took a a scorecard and a pencil as a souvenir, and then left. Yeah, it's pretty expensive to golf there.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions or anything from the group? Hugh, is there anything else that you'd like to add for today in terms of, events that are coming up? I know you mentioned that because of COVID, we're pushing a lot of the competitions and events down one more year. I guess, a question that I'm curious about is, how do you think golfing is going to look in a year from now once hopefully COVID moves on? What do you think will stick, and what do you think will go away during COVID?
I don't know if social distancing will change. Hopefully it changes. I mean, golf hopefully will get back to, to me, golf is an event that we do for social contact more than obviously some people go out and play and they're happy to play by themselves and enjoy the game that way. But I think for myself and the people that I play golf with, it's about being out with your friends and, even the 19th hole after the round and, the ability to meet before the round. When we have an OVIG event before COVID, we would have a lunch and then an event, or have the event and then a dinner after. So again, to me, golf is more about the social aspects of it. Even the competitive side of the house, where we go out and it's all the same band of hooligans, having a good time. Enjoying the company, plus the ability to just be open and honest about, God, I tripped over a garbage can yesterday. Oh, you idiot. What'd you do that for? That kind of conversation, where, you probably wouldn't say that if you're talking to your sighted friends, that kind of thing. So I think the big thing about golf is enjoy yourself.
For sure. And that's one of the reasons why we have our regular coffee chats. It's great to chat about these sort of things. Especially because of COVID. Making sure that we do the eSIGHT Together events are really great for that reason alone. I have a question here from Shelton. Shelton, how are you today?
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
We sure can. Hi, Shelton. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I was late coming in on the meeting, but I had a question. If I'm not using the eSIGHT, is there like an assistive to where someone will help you on the golf course? Because I used to golf before I became visually impaired, but I wanted to know if there was like a way, if there are any. That's why I'm the one to ask the question about Charlotte, to see if there was any type of programs where if you still want to golf, if you have some on the golf course.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know specifically about in the U.S. What I have is I would suggest that maybe contact the pro or the golf course that you wanted to go play golf at. A lot of coaches are family relatives and or friends that golf. So, if you used to golf or you got friends that maybe golf, talk to them, maybe get them to take you to the range, maybe, you can, you know, practice there a little bit before you go out. But I would contact either that or contact the American, I have to look up the website, USGA Blind Golf Association, I think. But if you look them up, if you even Google blind golf in the U.S. associations, they should be there. Contact them. They may have players in your area.
Okay. Okay.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Hugh, thanks so much for being with us today. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us on eSIGHT Together.